The first thing Emily Carter noticed was not the crying. It was the note, folded neatly beside two sleeping twins on a row of chairs near Terminal E at Boston Logan Airport. The handwritten message contained only 8 words. "Please forgive me. I had no other choice." Emily froze. Travelers hurried past with rolling suitcases. Airport announcements echoed overhead, and outside the tall glass windows, snow drifted silently across the runway. But for those two small children, barely 3 years old, the world had suddenly become frighteningly quiet. The little girl clutched a worn stuffed rabbit. The boy held tightly to his sister's sleeve, even in his sleep. No parents, no luggage except a single backpack, and no explanation. Emily's heart tightened. She was 32, a nurse from Chicago, returning home after attending a medical conference in Boston. Life had not been easy for her lately. After losing her mother the previous year and ending a long engagement, she understood loneliness better than most people. But nothing could prepare her for the sight before her. Airport security arrived within minutes, and officers began asking questions. As Emily stepped back, preparing to leave, the little girl suddenly woke up, large brown eyes filled with fear. Then, in a trembling voice, she asked one question. "Did Mommy leave us?" Emily couldn't answer. The words caught in her throat. At that exact moment, another traveler stopped nearby, tall, calm, dressed in a black coat that seemed too elegant for an ordinary passenger. Most people would have seen only a quiet man waiting for a delayed flight. Few would recognize him as Kong Min-jae, a powerful Korean businessman whose name appeared in international headlines, though the truth about his life remained hidden from the world. To some, he was a billionaire investor. To others, he was the mysterious leader of one of South Korea's most influential underground organizations. And, at that moment, he was staring at the twins with an expression no one expected: sadness. The boy opened his eyes and looked directly at Min-jae. For a second, time seemed to stop, because the child looked strangely familiar. Too familiar. Min-jae stepped closer. The little boy wore a silver bracelet around his wrist, a bracelet engraved with a tiny symbol, a symbol belonging to Min-jae's family. Impossible. His younger sister, Seo Yeon, had disappeared 4 years earlier after breaking ties with the family. She had wanted a normal life, far away from wealth, danger, and old secrets. No one had heard from her since, until now. Airport officers searched records connected to the twins' passports. The information raised more questions than answers. According to travel documents, the children had entered the United States with a woman claiming to be their mother. Their destination was listed as Toronto, Canada. But security footage revealed something strange. The woman had not looked frightened. She had not been in danger. She had simply walked away, alone. Emily watched Min-jae carefully. Most wealthy men would have called assistance. Most powerful men would have ordered others to handle the problem. Instead, Min-jae knelt beside the children. "Are you hungry?" he asked softly. The twins nodded. Minutes later, Emily found herself sitting with the children and Min-jae in a quiet airport cafe. The little girl, Lily, smiled for the first time while eating pancakes. Her brother, Noah, carefully shared his fruit with Emily. Small acts, simple kindness. But in difficult moments, kindness changes everything. As the snowstorm outside delayed flights across the airport, the 4 strangers spent hours together. Emily learned that Min-jae spoke gently to children, that he noticed when Lily looked tired, that he silently placed his coat around Noah when the little boy shivered. Power, Emily realized, meant nothing without compassion. Then came the shock. A call arrived on Min-jae's private phone. His expression changed instantly. The woman who abandoned the twins was not their mother. She was an aunt, and the real mother. Seo Yeon, Min-jae's missing sister. Worse still, investigators discovered the truth behind the so-called family trip. It had never been a vacation. Someone had been hiding the children, protecting them, running from people who wanted something far more valuable than money. The backpack left beside the twins contained passports, a photograph, and an old letter. The photograph showed Seo Yeon standing beside a smiling American man. In her arms were newborn twins. On the back, written in Korean, were the words, "If anything happens to me, let my children know they were always loved." Emily felt tears fill her eyes. Min Jae looked away, his hands trembling for the first time in years. All his wealth, all his influence. And yet he could not change the past. But perhaps he could change the future. That night, while snow covered the airport runways and flights remained canceled, two frightened children fell asleep peacefully, one resting against Emily's shoulder, the other holding Min Jae's hand. In a place built for departures, four strangers found something unexpected. Not answers, not certainty, but the beginning of a family no one had planned, and a truth no one was ready to uncover. Morning, sunlight spilled through the giant windows of Logan Airport. But for Kang Min-jae, the new day brought no peace. He hadn't slept. The photograph of his missing sister remained in his hands, its edges slightly bent from how tightly he had been holding it all night. Emily quietly watched him from across the waiting lounge. She had spent the night caring for Lily and Noah, wrapping them in airport blankets and telling bedtime stories until they drifted to sleep. Now the twins were awake, eating breakfast together. Neither child asked where their mother was anymore. Instead, they kept glancing toward Min Jae, as if some invisible connection already existed between them. An airport detective approached with a serious expression. "Mr. Kang, we've finished reviewing the surveillance footage." Min Jae stood immediately. "What did you find?" The detective placed several printed images on the table. Every camera showed the same woman leading the twins through the airport. She appeared calm, confident. There was no sign she was being followed, no sign she feared anyone. Then came the final image. At exactly 8:42 p.m., she hugged both children, whispered something into Lily's ear, walked away without looking back. Emily covered her mouth. "She planned this," the detective nodded. "It wasn't panic. It was preparation." Before anyone could speak again, Min Jae's private security chief entered the terminal. His face was unusually pale. "We have a problem." He handed Min Jae a small tablet displaying international immigration records. "The passports are genuine, but the names aren't." Emily frowned. "What do you mean?" "The twins have traveled under 3 different identities during the past 2 years." Silence filled the room. 3 identities, 3 countries, 3 disappearances. Someone had been hiding these children for a very long time. Just then, Noah quietly reached into the old backpack and removed a tiny wooden music box. "I forgot," he whispered. "It belongs to Mommy." Emily gently opened it. Instead of music, a hidden compartment clicked open. Inside lay a small flash drive. Everyone froze. Min Jae carefully inserted it into his encrypted laptop. Only one video appeared, recorded 6 months earlier. The screen flickered. Then Seo Yeon appeared. She looked thinner than Min Jae remembered. Dark circles surrounded her eyes, yet she smiled warmly at the camera. "If you're watching this," she said softly, "then my children are finally safe." Emily felt tears forming instantly. Seo Yeon continued. "Min Jae, I know you'll be angry, but I couldn't come home. They would have found us." The room became perfectly still. "I discovered something our family was never supposed to know. It wasn't outsiders destroying our family. It was someone inside." Min Jae's heartbeat stopped. "No." His security chief stared at the screen in disbelief. Seo Yeon lowered her voice. "I trusted the wrong person. The organization has been infiltrated for years. I don't know who anymore. I only know one thing. If they capture Lily and Noah, they won't be used for money. They'll be used to control you." The recordings suddenly glitched. Then another face appeared for less than 1 second. A man standing behind Seo Yeon, watching, not speaking. Emily gasped. "Was someone there?" The video ended abruptly. No explanation, no goodbye, only darkness. Min Jae replayed the final frame repeatedly. Then he zoomed in. His expression changed instantly. "I know him." His security chief looked over his shoulder. That's impossible. No, Min-jae whispered. It's worse. He's been working beside me for 15 years. Before anyone could react, Min-jae's phone rang, a Noonal number. He answered without speaking. A calm male voice echoed through the speaker. You found the children. You always were a good brother. Min-jae's eyes narrowed. Where is Seo Yeon? A short laugh. Still asking the wrong question. The caller paused. You should be asking whether she's still alive. The line disconnected. Emily felt the room grow colder. For years, Min-jae believed his sister had disappeared by choice. Now he understood. She hadn't been running from enemies. She had been running from someone she once trusted. Someone close enough to know every family secret. Someone patient enough to wait years before making the next move. Lily suddenly tugged on Emily's sleeve. My mommy said if Uncle Min ever found us. She smiled through frightened eyes. He would know where to take us next. Min-jae slowly knelt before the twins. Did your mother tell you where? The little girl nodded. Then she reached into her stuffed rabbit and removed a tiny silver key sewn deep inside the fabric. There. She placed it in Min-jae's hand. My mommy said, it opens the only place where the truth survived. The silver key felt surprisingly heavy in Kang Min-jae's hand. It wasn't because of its size. It was because his sister had trusted two small children to carry the last piece of her secret across an ocean. Less than an hour later, a black SUV quietly left Logan Airport under heavy security. Emily sat in the back seat with Lily and Noah. The twins had finally fallen asleep, leaning against each other as Boston disappeared behind them. Min-jae sat in silence. His eyes never left the silver key. 3 hours later, the convoy stopped outside an abandoned lighthouse overlooking the rocky Massachusetts coastline. Emily looked around in confusion. Are you sure this is the place? Min-jae nodded. My father built it years ago. No one outside the family knew it existed. The sea crashed violently against the cliffs as they climbed the narrow stone staircase. Inside the lighthouse, everything was covered in dust. Old furniture, broken lanterns, forgotten memories. It looked abandoned, until Noah suddenly pointed toward an old wooden bookshelf. Mommy touched that. Min-jae carefully pushed the bookshelf aside. Behind it stood a steel door hidden inside the wall. At its center, a tiny silver lock. He slowly inserted the key. Comic! The heavy door swung open. Cold air escaped from the dark room beyond. Emily switched on a flashlight. The hidden chamber was perfectly preserved. Shelves lined with files, photographs, hard drives, passports, and dozens of journals neatly arranged inside waterproof boxes. On the center table sat one white envelope. Across the front, written in Seo Yeon's handwriting, were 5 simple words, for my brother only. Min-jae hesitated. His hands trembled as he opened it. Inside was a handwritten letter. Min-jae, if you're reading this, then I couldn't protect the children any longer. I'm sorry I disappeared without saying goodbye. I didn't leave because I stopped loving our family. I left because someone inside our organization ordered my death. Emily watched tears slowly fill Min-jae's eyes. It was the first time anyone had ever seen the feared mafia boss cry. The letter continued. I gathered proof for years. Every payment, every secret meeting, every betrayal. Everything is inside these journals. But promise me one thing. Don't choose revenge over the children. They deserve a peaceful life more than we deserve justice. Min-jae closed his eyes. His sister had spent years running. Not for herself, for Lily, for Noah. Everything she had sacrificed had been for them. Emily quietly placed a comforting hand on his shoulder. You can still honor her. Before Min-jae could answer, Lily wandered deeper into the room. She stopped in front of an old family photograph hanging on the wall. The picture showed Min-jae as a teenager, laughing beside his younger sister. Neither of them wore expensive clothes. Neither looked powerful. They simply looked happy. Lily smiled. Mommy always smiled like that when she talked about you. Min-jae stared at the picture for a long moment. He barely recognized the young man he used to be. The years of violence, business, power had buried that version of himself. Until now, suddenly, one of Min Jae's security guards rushed downstairs. "Sir!" Everyone turned. "We've got company." Several black vehicles had stopped outside the lighthouse. Men dressed in tactical gear surrounded the property. They weren't police. They weren't government agents. Emily's heartbeat quickened. Are they the people chasing the twins? Min Jae looked through the narrow lighthouse window. His expression hardened. No, they're the people who betrayed my sister. One vehicle door slowly opened. An older man stepped out wearing an expensive gray suit, silver hair, perfect posture, a warm smile that hid something cold beneath it. Emily whispered, "Who is he?" Min Jae answered quietly, "Chairman Han, my father's closest friend, the man who taught me everything." The old man looked directly toward the lighthouse and calmly raised a loudspeaker. "Min Jae, I know you're inside. I didn't come for the children. I came for the evidence." His voice echoed across the cliffs. "Give me the journals." And everyone walks away alive. Emily looked toward the frightened twins. Lily held Noah's hand tightly. Neither child understood why strangers wanted them, but they understood fear. Min Jae slowly closed the letter from his sister. Then he looked at Emily. "If anything happens, take the children through the escape tunnel." She stared at him. "There's another exit?" He nodded. "My father always planned for impossible days." Emily shook her head firmly. "We leave together." For the first time since meeting her, Min Jae smiled. A genuine smile, not because danger had disappeared, but because someone had chosen to stand beside him when walking away would have been easier. Outside, Chairman Han checked his watch. "You have 5 minutes." After that, the lighthouse comes down. Inside the hidden room, Min Jae reached for the first journal. If his sister had risked everything to protect the truth, then today, the truth would finally be open. The lighthouse trembled as another wave crashed against the cliffs below. Outside, Chairman Han's armed men tightened their circle around the old stone tower. Their black vehicles blocked every visible road, and drones hovered overhead, searching for movement. Inside the hidden chamber, silence settled over everyone. Min Jae opened the first journal. Every page was filled with his sister, Seo Yeon's careful handwriting. Dates, names, bank transfers, photographs, and coded notes she had gathered over 4 years. She hadn't been running blindly. She had been building a case. Emily looked over his shoulder. "This isn't just about your family." Min Jae nodded. "It's bigger. Much bigger." The journals revealed that Chairman Han had secretly worked with an international criminal network, laundering billions through legitimate companies across Asia, Europe, and North America. Anyone who discovered the truth disappeared without explanation. Seo Yeon had discovered everything, and when she refused to stay silent, she became their next target. Noah quietly tugged at Min Jae's sleeve. "My mommy said bad people don't always look scary. They smile." Those simple words struck everyone in the room. Chairman Han had always smiled. He had attended family birthdays, celebrated holidays, watched Min Jae grow from a teenager into a leader, all while planning to betray him. A sudden explosion shook the lighthouse. Dust rained from the ceiling. "They've started!" One security guard shouted. "The front entrance won't hold much longer." Min Jae immediately gathered the journals, hard drives, and the flash drive into a waterproof case. "We're leaving." He led everyone toward the escape tunnel hidden behind an old stone wall. The narrow passage stretched beneath the cliffs, lit only by emergency lights installed years ago. Emily carried Lily. One of the guards carried Noah. Everyone hurried forward. Halfway through the tunnel, Lily suddenly spoke. "Wait." Everyone stopped. "My bunny." Emily looked down. The stuffed rabbit was missing. "It fell back there." "It's okay," Emily said gently. "We'll buy another one." Lily shook her head, tears filling her eyes. "No." Mommy hid something else inside. Min Jae turned instantly. "What do you mean?" Lily wiped her eyes. She said if anyone ever found the key, the rabbit would tell the rest. Without hesitation, Min-jae handed the evidence case to Emily. "Take the children to the boat." "What about you?" she asked. "I'm getting that rabbit." Before anyone could stop him, he ran back through the tunnel toward the lighthouse. Outside, Chairman Han watched smoke rise from the building. One of his men smiled. "Sir, he's trapped." Han shook his head calmly. "No, he'll come back. He always chooses family." Inside the damaged lighthouse, flames spread across the wooden floors. Min-jae ignored the heat and searched desperately through the debris. Seconds felt like hours. Then, he spotted the rabbit lying beneath a broken chair. He grabbed it just as part of the ceiling collapsed behind him. Racing back into the tunnel, he barely escaped before another explosion sealed the entrance with falling stone. Breathing heavily, he caught up with Emily and the twins near the tunnel's end. Lily hugged the rabbit tightly. "Thank you," Min-jae smiled. No one gets left behind. Once they reached the hidden cove beyond the cliffs, a small fishing boat waited exactly where his father had described years ago. The group climbed aboard. As the boat pulled away from shore, everyone watched flames consume the old lighthouse. It looked like the end of the story. But it wasn't. Emily carefully opened the rabbit. Hidden inside was not another key. It was a tiny memory card wrapped in plastic. Min-jae inserted it into a portable reader. A single folder appeared. Its title read, Project PHOENX. The folder contained hundreds of classified files, encrypted financial records, secret photographs, and one final video recorded only 3 days earlier. Seo Yeon appeared on the screen again. This time she looked exhausted, but determined. "If you're watching this, then Han knows everything. He'll destroy every piece of evidence he can find." She paused, taking a slow breath. "But he doesn't know about Phoenix. The people helping him think they're buying power. They're actually funding something much darker." Behind her, a map flashed briefly across the screen. Several cities were marked with red circles: Boston, Seoul, London, Toronto, Los Angeles, Chicago. Emily stared at the screen. "Those are the cities the twins traveled through." Seo Yeon nodded in the recording. "I moved the children from city to city because every location held one piece of the truth. No single person ever carried all the evidence." Min-jae slowly realized what his sister had done. She had turned 2 innocent children into the final link of a puzzle no enemy could solve. The recording ended with one final sentence. "Brother, trust no one who already knows where you're going next." The screen went black. At that exact moment, the captain of the fishing boat quietly reached into his jacket. Min-jae noticed the movement. The man slowly pulled out a satellite phone. He turned away from everyone and whispered only 6 words. "They're on the boat with me." Min-jae's eyes locked onto him. The captain turned around and smiled. The captain smiled. It wasn't the friendly smile of a fisherman helping stranded travelers. It was the calm, confident smile of a man who believed he had already won. Min-jae slowly stepped between the captain and the twins. Emily instinctively pulled Lily and Noah behind her. The sea stretched endlessly around them. The burning lighthouse had disappeared into the morning fog, leaving them completely alone on the Atlantic Ocean. The captain slipped the satellite phone back into his jacket. "You always were difficult to catch, Mr. Kang." His voice was smooth, almost polite. "But every journey ends." Min-jae didn't answer. Instead, he noticed something strange. The captain's hands weren't rough like a fisherman who had spent years working at sea. They were clean, well cared for. This man had been pretending from the very beginning. One of Min-jae's bodyguards quietly reached for his weapon. The captain chuckled. "I wouldn't do that." He pressed a small remote hidden in his pocket. A sharp beep echoed beneath the deck. Emily's face turned pale. "What's that?" "Insurance," the captain replied. "There are explosives below us. If I don't leave this boat alive, no one does." Silence. Even the waves seemed quieter. Noah looked up at Min-jae. "Uncle, are we going to die?" Min-jae knelt until they were eye level. No. His voice never shook. As long as I'm here, nothing will happen to you. Emily looked at him, despite everything. The betrayal, the danger, the impossible odds. His first concern was still the children. That was exactly why Seo Yan had trusted him. The captain laughed softly. Your sister believed love would make you stronger. He leaned closer. It actually made you predictable. Before Min-jae could respond, Lily suddenly stepped forward. Everyone froze. She held out her stuffed rabbit. Mister, you dropped something. The captain frowned. I didn't drop anything. Yes, you did. She pointed toward the floor behind him. For the briefest second, the captain turned his head. It was enough. Min-jae moved like lightning. He grabbed the captain's wrist before the man could press the remote again. The device flew across the deck. One of the bodyguards kicked it into the ocean. The captain fought fiercely, but Min-jae overpowered him. Within seconds, the man was restrained. Emily quickly picked up the satellite phone. The last outgoing call had been made less than 2 minutes earlier. She opened the recent message log. Her eyes widened. He already sent our location. Min-jae looked toward the horizon. Dark shapes were appearing through the fog. 3 high-speed boats, closing fast. They're coming, a guard whispered. The captain smiled despite being handcuffed. It doesn't matter. You escaped the lighthouse. You won't escape the sea. Just then, Noah quietly reached into the captain's jacket. What are you doing? Emily asked. The little boy pulled out a folded photograph. It showed Seo Yan standing beside the captain. But she wasn't smiling. Her wrists were tied. Emily's heart sank. This picture. Min-jae stared at it. The date printed in the corner was only 5 days old. His sister had been alive. 5 days ago, the captain finally spoke again. She never told us where the last evidence was. No matter what we did, Min-jae's fists tightened. What did you do to her? The captain looked away without answering. That silence hurt more than any confession. Suddenly, the boat's radio crackled to life. An unfamiliar female voice filled the cabin. Captain Daniel, you've failed. The captain's confident expression disappeared. The woman continued calmly. Protocol has changed. No witnesses, not even you. Before anyone understood what she meant, one of the approaching speedboats fired a rocket. The missile streaked across the water. It slammed into the captain's empty vessel that had been trailing behind them, erupting into a towering fireball. The captain stared in disbelief. They're trying to kill me. Min-jae looked directly into his eyes. Now you know how disposable traitors become. For the first time, fear replaced arrogance. The captain lowered his head. I can help you. I know where she's being held. Emily stepped closer. Is she alive? He hesitated. I think so. You think? Min-jae asked coldly. They moved her before I left. They called it. He searched his memory. The Raven House. Min-jae exchanged a glance with Emily. It wasn't much, but it was the first real lead they had in 4 years. The 3 enemy boats continued racing toward them, engines roaring louder with every passing second. Min-jae looked at his exhausted guards, the frightened twins, and the endless ocean surrounding them. There was no place left to run. Only one choice remained. Find Seo Yeon before it was too late. As the first enemy boat came within range, the captain whispered one final warning. If you think Chairman Han is the one in control, he slowly shook his head, then you've misunderstood everything. Emily frowned. What do you mean? The captain looked toward the burning horizon. Han doesn't give the orders, he takes them. And the woman who does has been watching all of you since the twins arrived at Logan Airport. The engines of the 3 black speedboats roared louder with every passing second. Sea spray exploded across the deck as waves slammed against the fishing boat, tossing everyone from side to side. Emily wrapped both arms around Lily and Noah, shielding them behind a steel storage crate. Min-jae stood at the bow, his eyes fixed on the approaching boats. He wasn't afraid. He was calculating. The captain, now handcuffed, watched in silence. For the first time since they had met him, his confidence had completely disappeared. "They'll never let me live," he muttered. "You should have thought about that before helping them," Min Jae replied without turning around. The enemy boats split apart. One circled to the left, another moved to the right. The third came straight toward them. "They're surrounding us," one of Min Jae's guards warned. Emily looked across the water. "There's nowhere to go." Min Jae pointed toward a dense wall of fog ahead. "There is." The old fishing boat accelerated into the thick Atlantic mist. Within seconds, visibility dropped to only a few feet. The enemy boats disappeared. Only the sound of engines echoed through the white haze. Then, silence. No engines, no voices, nothing. Even the waves seemed quieter. Emily whispered, "Where did they go?" Before anyone could answer, Noah pointed toward the water. "Look!" A black drone floated just above the fog, silently following the boat. Its tiny camera rotated toward the passengers. The captain laughed bitterly. "They don't need to see the boat. They only need to see you." Suddenly, the drone's speaker crackled. A calm woman's voice echoed across the water. "Good morning, Mr. Kang." Min Jae's expression hardened. "I've been waiting to meet you." Emily immediately recognized the voice. The radio. It's the same woman. The drone hovered only a few feet away. "My name isn't important," the woman continued. "But since you've come this far, you may call me Madam Raven." The name sent a chill through the captain. His face turned completely pale. "No, she never speaks directly." The woman ignored him. "Your sister disappointed me. I offered her everything. Safety, wealth, a new life. She chose loyalty instead." Min Jae's voice remained steady. "Where is Seo Yeon?" The drone remained silent for several seconds. Finally, "Still alive." Emily felt a surge of hope, but the woman continued. "For now." Lily squeezed Emily's hand tightly. "Please don't hurt my mommy." The drone camera slowly turned toward the little girl. For a moment, the mysterious woman said nothing. Then her voice softened. "You have your mother's eyes." Even Min Jae found that strange. There was no hatred in her voice, only sadness. Almost regret. The transmission ended. The drone suddenly exploded in midair. Fragments splashed harmlessly into the sea. Emily stared in disbelief. "Why destroy it?" the captain answered quietly. "She never leaves evidence behind." Just then, Min Jae's satellite phone vibrated. A message appeared from an unknown encrypted number. Only a set of coordinates. No words. No explanation. His security chief studied the location. "It's in northern Maine, an island." The captain immediately shook his head. "It's a trap." Min Jae looked at him. "Probably. But it's also the first place they've wanted us to find." Emily frowned. "You think they want us to go there?" "No," Min Jae answered. "I think someone inside their organization wants us to arrive before it's too late." As they changed course toward the new coordinates, Lily quietly opened her stuffed rabbit again. Emily smiled gently. "What is it?" Lily reached inside and pulled out something no one had noticed before. A tiny folded piece of paper. On it, written in Seo Yeon's handwriting, were just 3 lines. "If Min Jae finds this, trust Emily. Trust no one else." Emily's eyes filled with tears. "I've never even met your mother." Min Jae looked at the note for a long moment. His sister had planned for this. She had somehow known that a stranger with a kind heart would become the children's greatest protector. Before anyone could speak again, Noah pointed toward the horizon. A small island slowly emerged from the fog. At the top of its rocky cliffs stood an enormous stone mansion, dark windows, iron gates, towering pine trees. The captain whispered the words no one wanted to hear. "That's Raven House." As the boat drifted closer, the massive front gates began to open. On their own, as if someone inside had been expecting them all along. The iron gates of Raven House opened without a sound. The old fishing boat touched the rocky shore, and an eerie silence settled over the island. No guards rushed forward, no alarms rang. Only the wind whispered through the towering pine trees surrounding the mansion. "It feels like a trap," Emily said quietly. Min-jae nodded. It is. But it's also where my sister wants us to be. Holding Lily's hand, while Noah walked beside him, Min-jae led everyone through the massive entrance. The grand hall inside looked untouched by time. Marble floors, crystal chandeliers, priceless paintings, and a staircase leading into darkness. Then a familiar voice echoed through the mansion. You finally came. Everyone turned. At the top of the staircase stood a woman dressed in black, Madame Raven. She wasn't surrounded by guards. She wasn't carrying a weapon. She simply watched them with calm, unreadable eyes. So, she said softly, the children made it. Min-jae stepped forward. Where is my sister? Madame Raven looked toward a pair of large wooden doors. See for yourself. Without hesitation, Min-jae pushed them open. Inside was a quiet room filled with sunlight. A woman sat beside the window, reading a book. She looked thinner than before. Her hair was shorter. There were faint scars on her wrists. But the moment she looked up, the book slipped from her hands. Min-jae. Her voice broke. He stood frozen. For 4 long years, he had imagined this moment thousands of times. Sometimes he believed she was dead. Sometimes he blamed himself for never finding her. Now she was standing only a few feet away. Seo-yeon slowly walked toward him. Neither of them spoke. Then she wrapped her arms around her brother. Min-jae embraced her tightly, tears running down his face without shame. I thought I'd lost you, he whispered. You almost did, she replied. Across the room, Lily and Noah ran to their mother. Mommy. Seo-yeon dropped to her knees, holding both children so tightly they could barely breathe. I missed you every single day. Emily quietly wiped away tears as she watched the family reunite. For a few precious moments, nothing else mattered. Then Min-jae turned back toward Madame Raven. You destroyed our family. The woman slowly shook her head. No, Chairman Han did. She placed a thick file on the table. Everything you need is inside. Bank records, recorded conversations, photographs, every crime Chairman Han had committed, every betrayal, every murder he had ordered. Emily looked confused. Why help us now? Madame Raven stared out the window. Because your sister reminded me of the daughter I lost many years ago. She smiled sadly. I spent decades believing fear created loyalty. She proved compassion was stronger. Seo-yeon gently squeezed Emily's hand. It wasn't power that kept us alive. It was kindness, the strangers who helped us, the people who chose humanity instead of fear. At that moment, police helicopters appeared above the island. The evidence from the journals, the flash drives, the memory card, and the files inside Raven House had already been transmitted to international authorities. Chairman Han was arrested before sunset while attempting to flee the country. His criminal empire collapsed within days. The people who had spent years living in fear finally stepped forward to tell the truth. Months later, spring arrived in Boston. The twins laughed as they chased pigeons through Boston Common. Emily sat on a nearby bench, smiling as Min-jae helped Noah fly a bright red kite, while Seo-yeon pushed Lily on a swing. For the first time in years, there were no bodyguards, no hiding, no running. Only peace. Min-jae walked over to Emily. If you hadn't stopped for 2 frightened children at Logan Airport. He looked at his sister and the twins laughing together. None of this would have happened. Emily smiled. I only did what anyone should do. Min-jae shook his head gently. No, you did what many people walk past. Lily and Noah ran over, each taking one of Emily's hands. Come play with us! Emily laughed as they pulled her toward the open field. Min-jae watched them together and realized something his sister had tried to teach him years ago. Families are not only built by blood. Sometimes they begin with a stranger who chooses kindness when everyone else keeps walking. The afternoon sun stretched across the park as the twins' laughter echoed through the warm spring air, and for the first time in many years, the future no longer felt like something to fear. It felt like something worth protecting. Like, subscribe, and support my channel. I really need your support. If you enjoy my video, please share it and leave your feedback in the comments.